Hey, hey, hey!
Hey,
I'm so excited for this time with you. Darryll Stinson is on the mic today, y'all. And if you are not here with us live, you're in for a treat with his voice. It's like sweet and it is awesome. And I've had the experience of being with him in person, which isn't always the case with podcast guests at a mastermind event. And I was taken aback from you before when we just got to know each other virtually. But when I had the opportunity to be in person with you, you have a sense of calm. It's like that teddy bear comfort, in addition to like just a resilience. And as I got to know your story a bit, which I'm excited for you to share today, it just empowered me to keep going. And so I hope that people who are listening today have that same sense of empowerment, but also that same sense of safety. Thank you for being here.
I'm excited, and everyone tuning in. What's up? What's up? Watching replays. What's up? What's up? What's up? And really excited. I feel like this is going to be a time where we have some really engaging conversation that can give confirmation or a different perspective. And both are important. I think sometimes we need that, like, hey, you're not crazy. There's other people in the world that are struggling, that are succeeding, that are thinking, that are worried, that are whatever, feel the way you feel. But then there's those times where it's like, hey, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And both are required. So I'm
So
excited.
good. All right, we're done. We'll see you guys tomorrow. No, I mean, honestly, perspective is everything. And I know part of that perspective change in your life happened with trials and tribulations, right? It's with the becoming process. It's with the iron sharpening iron. Before you knew that iron felt more like a stab in the back, and perhaps physically, I know as a part of it with your D1 athletic experience. So I'd love for us to dive into the place of transition of perspective for you. And I'm sure there's been multiple, but I would love wherever you feel led in your testimony to take us to first.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to help me a little bit because I've been on this like probably about a week, arguably 4 week reflective period of the way that I think, the paradigm shifts that I've had. Paradigm shifts are great, and until they start to create a separation from the people that you so desperately want to connect to and reach. And so to put that in a box and kind of make that be able to be understood by other people, I grew up deathly worried about what people thought about me. In my TEDx talk, I talk about this scene where I'm in the third grade. My mother had put me in accelerated learning classes. Being from Jackson, Michigan, which is about an hour west of Detroit, that meant that I was one of two Black students in an all-white class, which was nothing wrong with this. There, as far as I know, nobody was racist. They loved me. They cheated off my test. They called me Goon because I was like this big, like goofy Goonie guy. And I was one of the smartest kids in the class. Life was great. And I thought that since they liked me, everyone like I must be like the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm walking down the hallway and I see this group of Black students circled together and they're just cracking jokes. And I'm like, man, I'm getting ready to get on the joke. So I walk over to them, I'm like, yo, what's so funny? Nobody answered. I'm like, man, I know they heard me. Like I was always that kid that was too tall for my age, and I was always the tallest kid in the class. I make a joke every time we take group photos. I'm like, nobody knows I have a lower body. It's just floating head in every picture since the first grade.
That's
And,
awesome.
and so I know they saw me and I know they heard me, but nobody responded. So I'm like, okay. So I spoke up. I'm like, hey, what y'all over there laughing about? And somebody turned towards me and was like, you're what's funny, white boy. I'm like, white boy. And I started asking, no, I'm in third grade. So I started asking around the school, like, why do they call me a white boy? And they were like, well, that's kind of what you're called. Like the whole school, you're known as the Black kid that talks and acts white. And I'm like, word? Like I didn't even, I'm
Really?
glad everybody knows this but me, which in the third grade is a terrible feeling, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like everybody, I'm a joke to everybody.
Mm.
I'm just being me. So that created this deep insecurity that who I was authentically wasn't enough to be liked or loved or celebrated by other people. And so I went on this journey of changing everything about myself to fit in with other people. And for me, it was that I spoke formally, right? For other people, it's whatever made you not fit in. It's whatever they teased you about. Like nobody wants to be the kid that feels awkward sitting at a table, at a lunch table where they feel like they don't belong. And so I changed everything about myself to fit in with this Black community, with the way that I talk, the music I listen to, all of this. And it worked. They embraced me. Like I got the street cred. I started making decisions, but I did so at a cost of my authenticity and my identity. I didn't know who I was anymore because I was keeping up the charades for everyone else. So you fast forward to through college, through Division I scholarship, through the injury that I had, and you can dig into any part of the story you want to, but you get to this point to where now, I find faith in Christ in a psychiatric care facility and start to realize like, I don't care what other people think about me because I know what God thinks about me now. So we shifted, and now I'm focused on, my true north and the calling of God and the purpose of God. And I'm not even thinking about all other people think. Like, it's not even like, I don't need, like, I'm not saying, no, I am saying like, there's such a callousness there. I literally don't care. Now, my wife, I care, but anybody, I don't care. Like, I love you, Tam. Like, but if you were like, Darryll, you're whatever. I'm like, I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
and, and here's what I meant by paradigm shifts can often create a distance. So I didn't realize this until recently. I've been on this deep kick that although I've went through that transformation, a lot of people still care about what other people think about them. And I forgot about that. So I was being very cold-hearted towards people. Like, it's even my clients, they're worried about sharing their story. They're worried about people judging them. They're worried about people twisting their words. And I'm like, so you have a calling, you have a mission. Focus on the people that need to hear it. And I'm not relating enough to them and being like, hey, I remember what it's like to be shackled by other people's opinions. Mm-hmm. And so now, they say where I'm from. I don't know if they say this where you're from, Tamra, but they say, don't forget where you came from.
They say it.
And I did. I forgot. Mm. And now I'm reflecting, and I'm getting better as a communicator and as a leader to be more empathetic to where people are starting because I was there. I was there.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I was actually having this conversation with my husband this weekend because I was struggling with making a financial decision, another financial investment, right? And we know as entrepreneurs, speakers, artists, sports, like athletes, wherever you are, whatever you do, that it takes investments of ourselves. And whether that investment is an investment of time, energy, this was a financial one, I was so uncomfortable to make this decision. And he said, I'm glad you feel that way. I'm really glad you feel that way. And I was like, that's just mean. Like, you could fix the problem, or there's another solution, but you're letting me sit in this discomfort. And it's because he's older and wiser and he's been through it before. But he said, this is going to help you have empathy for the people that you're going to serve, because they too are going to have to invest in you, or they're going to have to invest in something else. And so your empathy, you're sitting in the midst of that hard emotion, is exactly what you need. And I think, like you said, forgetting where you came from, forgetting when you get so removed from that and you're so confident, Godfident in what it is that he has for you, that empathy factor can slowly shed. And so I'm curious in this process of reflection and paradigm shifts and really being present so that you can be more present with the people that you get to serve. What kind of methodology are you using to kind of take you back to that experience besides just talking about it like we are now?
No, real talk. Like, that is the methodology. It's the old phrase, and I preached it too, that we have two ears and one mouth. We should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and asking people. Like, I did a live, I think that was last week. It might have been it was last week. And I just said, look, I'm trying to figure out what's missing. Like, this was my caption. You know how usually, join me for the master class. You're going to learn these 3 things. I literally was like, join me, because I'm trying to figure out what I'm missing out on. Because here's my dilemma, okay? And this might be a methodology that I do believe in an abundance, and I do believe that there's people who I don't have to convince at all. Like, I can find more Tamras to talk to, right? Not that you specifically can be duplicated, but that there's people, high achievers, believers that we can dialogue with. In fact, that's probably, why you created your conference,
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
which I heard about through somebody else, by the way.
What?
I didn't
How'd
even
that
hear about it from
happen?
you. So anyways, we can pick up there later. But um and so I do recognize that I could very well be like, forget it, I'm just going to work with leaders and people in my dream avatar, and I'm not going to try to convince the low paint. Like, I could easily do that, but in my mind, on how do we change the world, and I've been using different terminology. I told you I've been reflecting. How do we experience the abundance of the world? And I make that distinction for a reason, because I will say I want to change the world. I want to change the world, and I'm like, hold on. We live in a world of abundance. The world doesn't need to be changed. The world has everything we need. There's enough love, enough joy, enough peace, enough laughter, enough money to go around, that none of us have to live in lack unless we so desire. And so I don't need to change the world. I need to change the way we see the world. I need to change how we receive from the world. And so in my thought process of how we actually do that, it's when everybody plays their part. It's when everybody fulfills their role. We say your story matters to people. We say you matter to people. We say every person is unique, but yet we don't move through society like that. So if that's the case, and I truly believe everybody has purpose, I truly believe like that's how we experience the abundant life of everybody operating in their lane to their full potential, then I have to find a way to empower other people who don't think like me. And so I don't want to just be like, forget y'all, I'm going to make my money. I'm tired of dealing with y'all. Y'all can watch my free content. I want to get better as a communicator to be like, how do I bridge how you're thinking to a whole new pathway? How do I get you to truly believe that other people's opinion don't matter, so that you can overcome that barrier and then step up here with the big leagues? Because it's possible, and that's kind of where, that's my mindset. And so I'm kind of starting with the end and tracing my steps backwards. And so I literally started with, let me do the live, ask for people's feedback, like be honest, poke holes in people's theories, like ask challenging, be vulnerable. It's one thing to be like, oh, people say they want to share their story, but they ain't really, willing to. They don't want it bad enough. It's very easy for me to say that because I'm an elite athlete. What's harder for me to say is like, yo, I want to help people more than they want to help themselves sometimes. And I'm not being effective at it.
Yeah.
That's a lot harder to say.
It is. And if you're thinking about like poking holes or like changing the perspective, it's like my passion is to see people activated, and you partner with that. It's like the knowing that you have to speak, and whether you do it on a live TEDx stage, at a conference, if you go live on your Facebook or Instagram or whatever, right? Or you're just having an intimate conversation with self, right? There's an activation that's just as critical in that secret place as it is for you to get in front of the camera and be on stage. Nobody's message is less important or less valuable. That's exactly what you're saying, in the understanding that we all have a role in this, but we all have to activate, because the people sitting are the people we're actually waiting for. Because otherwise, if they were already activated, there wouldn't be this, there wouldn't be this struggle of competition, I don't think, in the same way, because there would be this understanding of imperfection and progress versus like success-driven living and secular need of attainment or fleshly compromise, right? Like, I think that we would be exampled to a lot more vulnerability if everyone was willing to share the actual pieces of their story that I think we actually need to share, but instead people are coming up with like, I don't want to share somebody else's and put them under the bus because I love them dearly. The 5 P's to purpose. I just made that up, so it's nobody's, right? And they're getting on stage.
It's just a blog.
It's somebody.
I guarantee you it's out there, but yeah.
The 5 P's to purpose. Wherever you are, you can come and find me and you can poke holes in this concept. But it's the knowing that they're taking stage and they're making way to share this message. But it's actually the depth behind the 5 P's that we care about. Right. And so this is where I love conversations with people like yourself, because you're willing to go there. And so you talked about like addiction or chasing mask or wearing mask and not even realize you were chasing them. You talked about the struggle of your physical self, of your mental space. Talk us through, like I asked at the beginning, this transformation process. What led you to want to share your story?
I always knew it deep down inside. I had always been told since I was younger I was a leader. I remember being 9 years old when I first became a Christian, and them telling me that, and I got super involved. Eventually I turned away from the church because of some moral issues that happened from leadership, and because I started to get influenced by other people, not from a like behavioral standpoint, because I was like selling drugs, skipping school, being promiscuous, all this stuff. But that wasn't really the bigger issue. The bigger issue was the stuff I was picking up from a belief standpoint. We're all religions meant to control people. That was the real danger. So you got people who are like, oh, Darryll, you shouldn't be selling. Oh, Darryll, you shouldn't be smoking. Oh, Darryll, you shouldn't be, having sex with girls. And it's like, what was really the issue, if you would actually talk to me, is that I'm over here listening to this stuff and observing my own church experience and being like, man, this stuff is not real. This is controlling. This is fake. And so, but I always knew it. Like there was this call to be a leader, to use my voice, and buried beneath my facade of street cred was this little boy just wanting to create and share. Right? Was the kid who secretly likes Eminem as a rapper, but also likes Tupac, and for different reasons, and not just and different reasons than what people usually like those artists. And so I get to I go through this whole experience in college, and this addiction to opioids after back surgery, and crashed and burned and didn't get to play in the NFL and got suicidal, had a girlfriend who I was dating and planning to marry who left me and got engaged to another man because I was no longer NFL potential. I had fans stop calling me. And at the same time, I'm noticed. I always knew it, but I'm noticing, that people are really only around me because of sports and because I was a drug dealer. And so I'm still like, nobody really knows who I am because I wasn't showing people who I was. And nobody really likes me. They just like this character I created. And it was always there, but I'm like, I'm too deep now. I literally have 10 people who I distribute drugs to. I can't be a speaker now. I can't share my story now. And there's a part of my story nobody even knows. This is good. Nobody knew I was having suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. And so, all that not sharing it led to me just containing it, and imploding, which was the depression and the suicidal attempts came from. And then I end up in this psychiatric care facility, find faith in Christ, ultimately, which is a beautiful story. And I remember that was kind of the internal dialogue me and God had once I put my faith in him. It's like, literally, I don't get to tell this part often.
I'm excited you do.
But I say yes. I said yes to God. I tell that part all the time. But the part that I get to say often is that you're supposed to be in there for a minimum of 5 days when you attempt suicide. But I kept telling the doctors who come to see how well you're doing that I was running from God, and I just said yes to him. Because that was the reality. The reality is that there was this underlying call the entire time, and I ran to the affirmation of people, and I ran to drugs, and I ran to sex, and I ran to sports, and I'm doing everything but the thing he's calling me to do. And so once I finally said yes and surrendered full posture, it was like God's like, okay, you ready now? And I'm like, oh, okay, yes. Yes means all yes. You're Lord. You're not just Savior. And I remember saying to God, I had this real moment with him. I said, okay, God, You saved me from suicide multiple times, so make my life worth living. That's all I wanted. And I knew that I could not settle for the mundane of life. I knew I couldn't settle for anything less than my call. And so I knew part of that was that I was going to express my purpose through speaking. And it took some time, but we got here. So, that's a long answer just to say the call has always been there, but it took a long time for me to finally say yes and do it in spite of my fear and insecurity.
And I think ultimately, Darryll, like that's the empathy right there.
Yeah.
Right. That's the understanding of every single client that you're going to come in contact with, whether they're in their faith or they're not in their faith. You have an attraction quality to you that I think is only God ordained. It's literally like a cloak that he's given you that other people don't have. Height might be a part of it. Stature might be a part of it, but it's the smile, it's the energy, it's the peace, it's the testimony. Right. And so your life already has been worth living, not only for my sake and meeting you, but also your wife and your children and everyone who's had the gift of knowing who you are. But I think as you're saying that understanding of implosion, that understanding that often the root is not actually what we as a culture see. It's not the alcoholism. It's not the addiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the sexism.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the consumerism. It's not the political. It's not the racism. Like we could go on and on and on. And it actually just goes down to wanting to be loved, right?
That's
and
it.
Love comes in the opening of thyself, the knowing, and also loving every single piece of thyself, even the imperfections. And that word implosion, I've never utilized or grabbed hold of for my own story. And that's ultimately, I think, exactly what it is and was. And a place that everybody gets to, whether they're super young and in an intimate experience, or they're much, much older, or they're running from it and they're still imploding.
Yeah.
And I think that's why your story and so many people's story, there's really no exclusion to that. It's necessary. Right. Yeah. And he is so good and so faithful in the way that he allows us to process and uncover the truth of every single part of it, because he's willing and he's right there ready to shed the love over top of you. But we have to be in that state. You said the word posture, and that word has been in my spirit, spoken on stages, in fact, just in the last couple of weeks, not only to me, but also through me. And I think it all comes down to that. It comes down to a posture of receiving, and a posture of giving in a place of no expectation.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious when you get on stage, because if you guys have never witnessed him, first you can go look up his TEDx right now, but he's going to make way for a TEDx of his own here soon, and you guys will be invited, or you have to apply probably, but you can come speak. And so you teach people this concept every single day. And when I got to witness you speak on the stage that we had in the house the first time, and I watched your body language, I was the last person to speak. I was actually so nervous. I'm like, I am not called to do this. I am called. I am not worthy, is how I felt. And I sat there in all the different emotions that I'm sure every single person you coach goes through. And I kept hiding. I went to the bathroom during the middle of the second and third person. I hid in the corner. Darryll makes way. And I'm watching him, not even from where the stage is. He's not even speaking into me because I'm hiding in the corner. And you took this posture of being in a chair, of coming up in confidence. And literally, as I watched you, I was gaining confidence, saying, I have to use my body. I have to use my body. I have to posture my whole body, not just my words.
Whoa, hold on. No way.
So good. Yes.
You came up with that idea?
Yes.
On the spot?
Yes.
Oh, I'm pissed. I'm so pissed.
It was on the spot. and I learned it from you, brother. And
You
so
crushed it. I thought
crush
you
it.
practiced that the night before.
No clue.
Wow.
No
You know that
clue.
quote of Marianne Williamson that everyone quotes? It's one of my favorites too. Like, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. Towards the end of that whole riff, there's this part where she's like, when you let your light shine, you liberate people so that they too can, let their light shine. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's the sense, is your own liberation gives people inspiration and freedom and a pathway to do the same. And what's crazy about that moment that you're describing is and you can ask Britt, my wife, I was freaking out. Like, I did not want to do that. I wanted everything instant. It's funny how our beliefs will sabotage our success. And you have to pay attention to the inner dialogue that goes into something when you meet opportunity. So here we are, because the way that it started is we started in small groups. So there's like, I don't know, 25, 30 people at the conference. You use small groups of 3 or 4 or 5. And then out of your group, you pick the best person to go present in front of the bigger group. And I knew I was in the group with Dr. Justin. He's good. He's a really good speaker. He's
So
really
good.
poised, right?
Yes.
And there was this moment of like, who's it gonna be, Darryll or Justin? Okay. The old Darryll would have just blocked it away. Oh, because I perceive Justin to be more valuable than me, better than me. He's got more money than me. And I'm so focused on what other people have that I don't even recognize what I have. And by the way, I didn't show up how I could have showed up. And so they don't even, so I'm like, you know what? I didn't even give him my all. So anyways, I'm sabotaging. And there was this little moment where I said to myself, don't fight it. Do not resist it. Just shut up. Just don't even say anything. And I promise this is a true story. I'm literally sitting there, like grabbing my chair to anchor myself to not say anything. And Justin, so he's cool as a cucumber.
He's so good.
He's just sitting there like he knows it's his.
I love him.
And then they're like, well, Justin. And then I was like, I didn't say I'm down for whatever, because that would have been a lie. I wasn't deep inside. I knew it was mine. And so I just had to let it come to me and not push it away with these false humility statements. And ultimately, that's what happened. And they were like, well, you go, especially because you're the speaker guy, and so then I go, and then I'm like, I told my wife, I'm like, man, I want to try something, but I'm not good with my body. I don't like trying things with my body. I want to try.
Y'all, he's lying. This is so good. This is so crazy that this happened.
You're gonna find this crazy. I've been speaking since 2012, but timidly, right? I can count on one hand how many times I've done something like that. Okay. And so I was like, man, it'd be cool if I just started off sitting, and then as I go, like, stand to give to communicate, this is the journey I went through. Right. So if nobody listened to the sound of what I said, they would be able to tell just from body language. And I was so scared to try that in front of people who are like going to catch every error. And that's crazy that it inspired you to do that.
I literally could, like, I'm on the verge of tears right now because it was for me. Like, wow. I truly believe that as much as it was for you, and you now have unlocked this new component of your being as you speak, it was for me.
Yeah.
And I received it in that moment. I activated it quickly. And I think that's a component that people hinder themselves in that thought pattern. But as you were sharing the story just now, I don't know how often we actually sit and reflect on an emotion that can happen or a situation that can unfold very quickly. Because those conversations, we shared our story really fast paced for the most part. And then everyone got deposited feedback. And I literally sat in the exact same position. Carrie was in my group. And I was like, Carrie Ford, girl, we're going to shout out all the people from the mastermind. She's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Her story is powerful.
She's really
Talk
good.
about eloquence. She got more money than me. I mean, we're going through the same process, Darryll. Like, no joke. I'm sitting there and I'm like, but I knew
Right.
I knew that it was mine.
Yeah. And what do we value? Right? Because it, Carrie I love Carrie. I've done content with Carrie.
Yeah.
Carrie is a good speaker.
Yeah.
Carrie's intimidating sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, there's some footage because we did our. I was renting studio time here in Metro Atlanta, and I invited her over because she's not too far from me. And there's some footage I haven't released yet, like just to be real, because we because of how she make me look. I'm like, dang. She keep me looking better than me in my podcast.
That's awesome.
So I wasn't prepared for all of this. I was missing a button, and she's all. Anyways,
she's amazing.
Where's I going with this? This is coming to a really important point.
The symmetry of our experience. What do we value? You said.
Yes, because all that is important. Her presence, her power, but what gets overlooked is your relatability.
Mm.
And not that Carrie's not relatable.
Sure, of course.
But for me, as a consumer of both of your content, and as a friend to both of you, and as a colleague, I relate more to you. And she's a Christian, and so it's and I love Jake too. And so it's just I don't know what it is.
Well, it goes right back to what you said before, that everyone has a piece in this, right?
Right.
And there's, even if you're using the parallel of everyone has their own lane, like our lanes might be closer. That doesn't devalue the lane that's two over. One day you might veer off to be next to that lane, right?
True.
And so it's the recognition that they all exist and they all have the same direction when we're aligned, and we all want similar things. And that Christian, belief system, that faith in God allows us to all have the same trajectory. But you're so right in that understanding of relatability. I think that there's those connectivity pieces. And so that was such a powerful experience. I had no plan on talking about it today, but I think people need to know that there's so much more to just sharing your message. There's actually this expression of being your message. And when you become your message, if every part of your life is that message, as you go up to speak for 5 minutes or you go up to speak for 50 minutes, is if you can embody every component of empathy and every component of confidence, right? It's the whole spectrum that allows people to immerse into who you are.
That's good. Be your message. I mean, speak your message. We should have titled it "Be Your Message." And I so agree. And it's so funny because I was just telling a couple of my clients, specifically one, and I can't get into this. I want to share the exact same story, but I don't know if I have permission. I have, again, I'm learning that not everybody thinks like me. Like, to me, I'm an open book, and everybody's not an open book though. So, but you still get the lesson in it. The lesson is this: I'm talking to one of my clients, and he has this message that is so powerful, but he's not living it. And I'm like, oh, this is what's really, there's no congruency. So you feel like an imposter, not because you don't have a better website, not because you're not a great speaker, but because you're literally not doing the very thing that you're encouraging other people to do, which is crazy. And it's probably what makes this message so powerful, is that oftentimes we need the messages that we teach to other people. And so if I were to apply that to self in this moment, one of my messages is, you're enough. I got like 4 engagements in the fall on just that message alone. And you're enough without the job title. You're enough without the social media following. You're enough without the level of income that you think other people respect. You're enough with or without the girlfriend. You're enough as you are. And when you have that foundation belief that you're enough, it's what helps you to have a healthy version of success, right? And so that was my opportunity to be the message, because I didn't feel like I was enough. I felt inadequate. I felt undeserving in certain ways. And then I had other insecurities. And so me living out that message made the spoken message so much more powerful, because there's this internal unseen game that's like compounding energy into this message. And so I'm so glad you said be the message. And I think that's important for people. It's so corny. We say, be the change you want to see. And we're like, oh yeah. But there's so much truth in that statement. A lot of people are complaining about things that they should be the solution to.
It's so true. And like you said, it's like what you speak is often what you want to hear. How many times do you hear a pastor who's like, I needed that. Like, I needed that, right? I
Yeah.
felt that same way when I just finished writing my book. I cannot wait for it to release, which, by the way, you guys, he's also an author. I've got his book that he sent me right here, Who Am I After Sports by Darryll Stinson. But it was that emotion of this is the message of my life. There's so much vulnerability to it, but I needed it. I needed to just release it out of me so that I was actually confident enough to say it out of my mouth. Because it's a lot easier, though it was still hard. And I weeped over the pages. I'm writing with a pen. I never actually wrote it. I was typing the whole time.
Yeah.
But, the written component, I wept for years as I wrote that book. And when I finally finished and closed that final piece of paper after reading it through, I heard in my spirit, it's time. It's time. And so that subsequently happened almost right before that experience at meeting you and being able to share. And again, there's so much more to the story, right? Like you don't have enough time to say it all in 7 minutes. But I feel like that was just the first step to so much more that's to come, and no different for you, even though you've been speaking for years and coaching it for years. So there's that embodying. So coming in October, Be the Message live with Darryll and Tamra. I don't know what that looks like. Lord, it's good. It's so good. And again, I think the best part about it is it's heartfelt, because I didn't script that. I didn't plan for it. Neither did you.
I mean, I'm like, okay, I'm about to ping my assistant and be like, let's make this happen.
TEDx 2022, Be the Message.
I think affirmation's important, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and I see this a lot on Clubhouse. I see this a lot in retreats. People are wanting affirmation prematurely or too much of it. And I say that with another mind that says you can never get enough affirmation. So like anytime I always say you want to have a better marriage, anytime you think a good thought, say it, don't just think it, say it. Because a lot of times I'm like, man, I think good thoughts about my wife, I don't communicate it. But when she mess up, she gonna hear it,
Oh, that's
and
good.
so
That's good advice right there.
So you can never get enough affirmation. I appreciate you. You have what it takes. Never get enough of that. But I think it's when you're so depending on that, other people's affirmation, other people to confirm your ideas, that you value their opinion so much more than you value your own, is where you get into trouble. And that's what it was like for me. I mean, I still have tendencies to do that. Like, and I call it research, and I call it just trying to make sure that I'm understanding the situation correctly. But deep in there, it's an insecurity of like, am I wrong? Am I alone in this? And I'm looking for a YouTube video to affirm it. I'm looking for a conversation with the spouse or an entrepreneur to be like, Darryll, you're not crazy. You're going in the right direction. Like, but sometimes none of that comes. And sometimes you got to just value your own opinion, because deep down, you know what you're capable of. Like I told people, one of the reasons why you can't do that is because nobody but you and God know your actual potential. Right. And I always tell people this example, that I was a Division I athlete, and I was a defensive lineman. If you don't know sports, this might be a little hard for you, but I was a big guy. Okay. And we got conditioned. They worked us out according to our weight level. So if you were bigger, you had more time to complete sprints. If you were smaller, you had less time to make it even. But I was fast. And so what I did is I was the first person to finish my conditioning sprints out of the big people. Watch this. They were clapping. They were applauding me. This is the danger of Paul. So they, yay! Oh my gosh, you guys need to be like Stinson. Look at him. He's running through the line every single time. Like, look at his effort. He's giving everything he's got on every sprint. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going 75%. I was an all-state track athlete. I should be running with the small people. But that's hard.
Uh,
So I'd rather run with these linemen and be first.
yeah.
And hide behind their affirmation.
Woo, you guys, you better be taking notes or feeling convicted in this moment because wow.
Yeah. And this is why you can't motivate gifted people with trophies and things like, because it's like, you gotta call greatness out of some people like that, because I know a lot. I see it because I was it. So I see people and they're like, they crush it. I'm like, no, they're not. They're giving 70%. They're not even giving everything. I can tell. They can't, and that's why they can't receive. They can't receive because they know it's not true. They know that they didn't give it everything they got. They know that they're not trying their best. They know that, and so you gotta go with what's in your heart. I'm doing the things I'm doing because of what I know I'm capable of and what I know God's called me to.
Holy smokes, y'all.
Affirmation helps. Tamra being like, Darryll, you're amazing, helps. But I'm telling you, if that ain't there, I got found.
We don't say that where I'm from, but I know what you're talking about.
I do. You gotta have something. You can't be so shaky and so needy and so broken, and because you gotta value your own opinion. Because when I talk to people who struggle with depression and feelings of inadequacy, a lot of times when you really have conversations with these people, you'll notice they see their talent. They're just waiting for somebody else to like convince them of their own greatness. You convince you can, and I used to say, hey, borrow my belief in you if you don't believe in yourself. Right? I get that. Sometimes you got to borrow other people's belief, but there comes the point where you got to switch a different gear. Like borrowing somebody else's belief is like gear 1.
It's good.
And you can't be in year 10 in gear 1.
No,
you got to shift gears from I borrowed your belief to now my belief's driving.
Come on.
You might not get it. That's how people create change in the world.
And I think as I'm thinking through that affirmation, words of affirmation from a love language is like bottom of the rung for me. And it's always because when I get them, I feel that exact way. I'm like, oh, it was all right.
That's funny.
It could have been better. And there's, because I know the greatness that's within me. And when it's not to that level, the applauds, they just don't matter. And even when that applaud is my spouse. And so what I have had to come to do from a learning perspective is, one, I need to be okay with receiving so that I can then give back in a gratitude. Right? Because just because I don't like receiving it doesn't mean that it doesn't feel great for that person to be able to affirm me. We have a gal who's listening now, and she gives me affirmation every single day. And I'm always like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Right? And do I actually take it to heart? Maybe not all the time, because I know that there's a level of expectation that I have for myself. But ultimately the practice, and this is something I hope that you take and know from me, I'll tell you you're great every single day. But I think it's us coming to the Lord, going back to that first word that we talked about, that posture, that positioning ourselves in a place of, God, tell me how you see me. Because when I get into the word and he's affirming greatness within me, that's the level of expectation. It's why worldly words don't matter. It's why I love you for saying it. But if it's not to his standards, I've fallen short. And so my expectations are just like through the roof all the time. Now, does that mean I don't have grace for myself or that I'm striving for perfection? Absolutely not. He is the only perfect one. But I'm called to be more like him. And he was the best storyteller. He was the best community driving person that we could possibly know. He was the message. Talk about be the message.
There you go.
Right? So every single thing that I try to evoke and equip other people with, but also having to start to be the message, to be myself and evoke and equip myself, is no different than how you activate on stage and then activate other people.
Yes.
You're calling them to be more like Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest commission, not get on stage. That's not what Darryll and I are saying. We're saying be the best version of yourself.
Yes. And redefine how you see a stage.
Yes. So good.
This is a stage.
Yes.
If you cut off the stream, it's still a stage. I have a person's attention.
Mm.
And that's important into the overall narrative of you want to know the biggest stage, most important stage from a human interaction. This is not, I'm not gonna go the God route, that I ever had in my life. And this will be my like closing story. Uh it's when I was driving in my car wanting to end my life, and my mother called me, and I picked up the phone. That was a stage of one person. It was a mother and a suicidal son. And she had an opportunity to be her message, to speak her message. And she spoke it authentically and vulnerably. She said, "Son, I don't know what's going on. I don't even know why I felt led to call you, but something's telling me that you need to come here and get help." She said this while I'm driving to end my life. My suicide letter was on my seat. She had no clue. That's reframe how you see a stage. My daughter came up to me today. She fell and she lost one of her teeth. And she came up to me with her little tooth. And she goes, "Daddy, look, that's a stage." And when we start to see life like that, and we be our message, speak our message, stuff starts to change. And so I just say that to people because, yeah, there's this level of getting in front of people, being more public that's required and of some. But all of us have a stage. All of us. All of us. And by the way, if you really got it like that, you do good with the stages that you're given, God's going to open up doors. You cannot hide greatness. You can't. You can't. So that's kind of my last thought. And I say that because I know that there's people who follow you, who envy, who follow you, who love you because they think so much more highly of you than they do themselves. Oh my gosh, of course, Tamra. Yeah, look at her, look at her, look at her, look at her. And it's like, no, look at your life, your stages, your opportunities, your relationships, and speak your message there.
So powerful. I don't have anything left to say, y'all.
I don't either. I mean, I do, but I just want people to take that and just
Yeah.
soak in that and take action on that.
Yeah.
Because if one person does that, I'm telling you, if they go back and listen to some of the stuff we were saying that we didn't have time to dissect, I'm telling you, it's a game changer.
Well, and that
Absolutely.
is the ultimate impact, right? Is the knowing that we hear it all the time. It's for the one. And do you actually activate in that understanding or that belief system? Or are you checking how many follows or likes or views you got on your reel? Guilty, right? And so it's this knowing that your mom is never going to meet every single person that you're going to impact. She's never going to see the ripple effect of that call. But her stage might be more powerful than every single one that any of your students ever take. Maybe. Because it was a position and it was a posture that God allowed her to take that prompted her, that then she activated. And that's the ultimate part of every single message. In order to be the message, a be is an action. Be still and know. Don't sit on your rear. Don't do it. Don't drive into no man's land and consider taking a life that is so precious, was so predetermined for greatness. I've been there. And so there's so much beauty to us being, and I'm grateful to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys, if you do not know Darryll Stinson, I hope you know him more now. I know you do. You can go to his website and all the links are in all the places. And you can go see him on Facebook and Instagram, Stinson Speaks. And hopefully soon enough, you'll see us in a picture again, side by side, top half of him, whole half of me. So good, brother. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
It was good. See ya.
Take care.